believe in God?
Every description of God that I've heard holds God to be all-powerful, very typical, and all good. And I see earthquakes and tornadoes and disease, childhood leukemia, and I see all of this and I say, I do not see evidence of both of those being true simultaneously. If there is a God, the God is either not all-powerful or not all good.
I promise we will do a pull apart of that intro from Neil deGrasse Tyson one day. Keep talking about it. Hopefully it's going to happen. G'day and welcome to this episode of An Atheist, a Believer and a Pastor Walk into a Bar. I'm your host, Peter Rowe. Thanks for your company on this Wednesday night, the 15th of January, 2025, just gone 8 p.m, broadcasting from Perth in Western Australia. That is Australian Western Standard Time. If you were watching elsewhere in the world, we are live on YouTube. We'd love to get you involved in tonight's episode, which is titled Trying to Fit a Flat Earth into a Round Hole. It's hard to find the exact numbers. I did some research to try and find out just how many people on the earth are in fact flat earth believers. It is very difficult to get an accurate reading. There are millions, we know that many, totally convinced that the whole planet we live on, this planet we call Earth, is nothing but a conspiracy. Apparently there are millions who are conspiring to delude us into thinking that we've all been lied to. And in fact, according to those millions worldwide, we will in fact be living on a flat Earth forever. Yay! I don't know anyone personally who believes that the Earth is flat, and that's probably because I'm usually drawn to make friends with rational thinking people. But clearly, many are convinced that the Earth is flat. For people in the Middle Ages, I can totally understand why you would think that the Earth was flat. They had no way of being elevated enough to see at least the curvature of the Earth to prove them wrong. So the conclusion was that it's flat. But as time moved on, we could see the Earth is a sphere, like all of our planets around, including the sun, which of course is a star, but it's still round. We shall talk about the sun. In fact, we don't really have a choice, because if the Earth is flat, then clearly the sun isn't what we think it is, nor are the stars we see in the sky. Have we all been wasting our time buying light bulbs when whoever is tricking us into believing that the world is round full of lights must have an enormous supply? Why the hell aren't they given to us free? What about daytime? Part of the argument to support this theory is that we can't see the stars during the day. Is it because they're not turned on properly? I know something else that isn't turned on. I'm feeling it right now. Anyway, it's a fantastic discussion which may get us nowhere or make us wiser. Hopefully the latter. As I was putting this together, I thought about the parallels with believing in a singular God or many gods and believing in a flat earth, neither of which can be qualified by science. So where does that leave us? To help us navigate the strange and confusing path that is the flat earth belief, we have a very special guest, and in fact, the first person to ever join us live on this podcast outside of Australia, and he resides in a part of the world that has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Please welcome Fenton from California. G'day, mate. How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Doing really well, mate. You're in a car. Bless you to get out of the house and stop making noise to annoy other people. And it is freezing where you are, I believe.
It's freezing cold, 4 a.m. But
Mate,
I'm toasty warm in my thermal, so I'm fine.
We appreciate the effort, mate. We really do. So people obviously watching will know of Fenton. He joins us regularly on the podcast and always has some fantastic input. So we do have Rich and Jace, who's just ducked out for a second because he's having some internet issues, which is an ongoing drama when you live where he lives, which is a very isolated area. And Suresh not available tonight either. He's with his mum, God love him. She's 91 today. Fantastic. So he's having some fun with the family. So I'm going to start off with talking about the news of late, of course, what's been happening in Los Angeles. How far away from Los Angeles are you?
Probably around 5 or 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
we don't even see any smoke or really anything, but we've had pretty local fires here before where, the smoke will fill half the sky and ash will be falling all over everywhere. So I definitely know what it's like down there, or at least close, because this is hitting new limits for, what we've seen in California.
Yeah, yeah. To the countries that are mostly, I think, on the news when it comes to wildfires and disasters like this is often Australia, because we have such an enormous country, and it is very, very dry, a lot of it, and of course anywhere around California is obviously very well known for wildfire, which is the worst kind of fires you can get. So we've got you on because last week on the podcast, Fenton, we were talking about flat Earth, and we thought you've got a vested interest in it. We're all very keen to talk about it, so we thought we'd get you on as our very first outside of Australia guest. So there's no prize or payment or anything for that. We would just pay you with gratitude and thanks. So why have you been interested in the whole flat Earth conspiracy? What got you into it?
Well, actually, I was never a flat earther, but at one point, I think around 20 years old, I was full, like, this was before QAnon, but I was what QAnon was at that point. I watched Ancient Aliens. I got really excited. I thought there was codes and everything, and it's it was an intoxicating thing. So I'm the type of person where I'll read every book on something if I get really into it, and I just dig in. And I have like a personal insider's experience of that, and coupled with like a spiritual religion that I also believed at the same time. It's kind of really interesting for me now to, as an atheist and a person who definitely doesn't believe the earth is flat, or a lot of these conspiracies, to look at it and break down why they reason into this. How do you get caught up in it? How could I be caught up in it when I now think that's insane? What
Yeah,
it's fascinating, that bridge.
I wonder what it is that attracts certain people to certain needs to sort of wrap themselves around with conspiracy theories from all sorts of places. Do you think there's a commonality in the people that believe that the Earth is flat, that they somehow makes them feel better about themselves, or they're a part of a group, that they have people who share the same view? That is a very strong driving force with any group of people who have a common interest. Is that pretty much the same for flat earthers, do you think?
Yeah, and what's kind of funny is they'll even express it this way, but a lot of it, and I see a lot of like belief systems are usually couched in one issue. And like with a lot of religions, they're couched in the consciousness issue and the life after death issue. And that's really the basis for, what everybody's confused about and mythologizing from. And with the flat earthers, it's couched in this lies exist, and authorities lie, and we don't know really what's going on, and there's these mysteries, and the lie thing is such a, like, it's a little thing that can just plug into any situation for them on a lot of times. And they can see, NASA had this ex-Nazi guy, Werner von Braun, as part of the foundation of parts of it, and they think now we are being lied about everything. And it's like, this is just a little fact, and you can turn it into a lie, and then it's part of what you're LARPing all the time. Everything's a lie. That's a lie, and I don't know. It's once they fit it into that mode, it's their core problem. Everything's a lie, and they can attach it to that, and I don't know. It just repeats really when you watch them debate and stuff like that. You just see them repeating that, like, but you're lying, and this debater's lying, and the moderator's lying, and the news is lying, and it's like, when you got to believe somebody.
Yeah. Oh, you gone mute there, Rowie.
too. It's gone off by itself. Yeah, it's quite ironic, isn't it? That you know their most vocal claim is that other people are lying to us, and yet their whole premise, not necessarily something that they realize, but they are lying to people to get them to be like they are. And I just wonder just how many flat earthers actually truly deep inside believe, or they just want to be a part of a group and just be a pain in the ass, or just believe in conspiracy theories just for the hell of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always really hard because I watch a lot of the debates and I'm fascinated by looking at them and going, do you really believe that bit that you just said reptilians really did? You
Oh,
know, and
yeah.
you're like, I get you doubting NASA or something, or thinking I can't remember the director right now, but this famous director filmed the moon landing. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's hard to like see how they do that, but I don't know, I lost train of thought. It's 4 a.m. Sorry.
It's all good. Rich, you want to
Yeah, I was just thinking that because I haven't obviously gone too deep in it. Flat Earth hasn't been one of the things that I've been fascinated by, although the whole idea of these sort of I hesitate to call them fringe beliefs, because they're becoming not so fringe. They seem to be impacting politics and a lot of social dynamics. But one of the things that always stands out to me and is this a real there's a real big deal around NASA being one of those organs of mistrust, and the lies are out of there, rather than what me as an outsider would look at NASA as their space exploration agency. They're actually, there would be some secrets around what they deem as sort of national security, etc. But they're really a bunch of scientists. However, I think the view that the flat earthers have is very different to that, more like almost like a propaganda organ to keep this big secret.
Yeah, what's interesting about flat Earth is it's not only the conspiracies, and it includes all of them. Operation Paperclip, and like they'll connect Iran Contra, or they'll connect everything to it. But they'll also, the firmament is in the Bible, so they're connecting this other side to it, and that's where it becomes like a different type of conspiracy group, where they're collected with like, I feel like half of them believe the Bible is some type of ancient wisdom, and it's not. They don't read the Bible and go, I'm a Christian and this and that. They read the Bible and they think it's part of this ancient stuff that we're uncovering, and it's corrupted. And then the other half are Christians, and I don't know how they it's like a creationist kind of thing where they latch on to the group, but they don't totally adhere to a lot of the other conspiracy stuff. I don't know.
Because I think to maintain, I think one of the things that drives, and we'll probably talk about later, is this ability to explain everything. But one of the things that maybe has to be there to contain some of the phenomena of the heavenly bodies, so to speak, is that idea of that firmament, or there's no such things like the outer space, but everything's sort of local and moving in that space, which is very similar to an ancient cosmology or understanding of what it looked like. I mean, the Bible talks about the firmament, and it seems like they've got a very similar kind of view of to what I guess those ancient people thought space was like. Does that ring true?
Yeah, and that's actually like what we kind of got into a little bit, is that when you live your life, your intuitions are telling you this has to be flat. I need to go flat and level across when I'm traveling. The universe can't expand away from me, and I don't even know what these distances are, these stars, this, like, so your intuitions just it seems a lot more like something like a diorama. I can see a dome over me, and I can kind of see that being a circle maybe, but the ground's flat near me in my experience, and even, when they're building things, like the Egyptians are building pyramids, they're using a straight line, to get their plumb, and they're doing everything basically off a straight line. So it's just intuition, and it's the same for the flurfs. They're yelling at you going, what are you talking about? It doesn't feel this way,
It makes it so hard to have a really concise, decent argument about things that neither party knows all about it, as you're talking about with the expansion of space, and the Bible is renowned for having people misconstruing simple. I mean, the whole Bible, part of it is in both Revelation and Deuteronomy, where it talks about the four corners of the earth. I mean, that's not it's something that's meant to be taken literally by the people who said it, because they would have no understanding that the earth could possibly have four corners. And it's also a generalization of going to all parts of where we live. They never talked about the shape of the earth. It didn't talk about it being spherical. It didn't talk about it being flat. It just makes comments like that, which are generalized. And then for someone to take that and they mention the four corners of the earth, therefore the earth must be flat and you can visit those four corners. I mean, you can't expect it to be anything other than just a statement made out of ignorance. But that's the Old Testament in so many ways, that people have spent their lives doing whatever they can to fulfill some of the craziest scriptures. We've talked about them often, of course, on this podcast. And it's always to do with sticking it up other people and being right and superior and it's like, I've watched a few documentaries on flat earthers, and they are just a real bunch of angry people who are more interested in, I think, about fighting with the government and the so-called controllers that all of the countries in the world have all got together to conspire to create this belief that the earth is round when in fact it's flat. I mean, I think it's so crazy you couldn't even make a film about it. I know there has been, but yeah, it's crazy. I'm just going to see Jace is just back with us. He's back. And he's moving, really.
Wow. This is incredible.
You covered your body in Dinka Rub, didn't you?
Yes. And unfortunately, I've had to change computer, so that was a bit of a rush.
Ah, well, that's okay. I like your background. Well, I love what you've done to the kitchen there. It's nice.
Thank you very much. It's all the best foods out of this place.
Yeah. So what you've missed is hearing Fenton talk about,
Hang on, who's that amazingly good-looking guy?
Well, it's normally you, but
is Fenton normally animated, or does he sort of sit still like that all of the time?
Yeah, I know.
He's little.
I don't remember what the logo looks like on YouTube. I think I'm like this.
That's right.
With some crazy
anyway, hello, Fenton. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
So yeah, look, we've just touched lightly, I think, around the edges of the whole flat Earth thing, Fenton. Like a lot of us, but no, not to his extent, of course, are fascinated by the whole, what drives these people to believe things which are proven, scientifically unproven, that it can exist and that it can be real. So if you've got a question or two, Jace, to catch up, just chuck it in.
Oh, well, so hang on, let me just establish. So Fenton, you are not a flurf. You are a person who is critical of flurfs.
I do look right now like a lot of flat earthers look when they're in online debates. That's what's kind of annoying. They usually have a hoodie, a bit of a beard, and I should have like some kind of frantic things I'm poking at or researching or something.
All right, well, fair enough. I'm in that case, just so we can establish your credentials, Fenton, just so we can be sure that your head's in the right place. I'm going to pose a bit of a thought experiment to you. If I get my longest spirit level and I lay it on the ground, it is proof that the earth is flat, Fenton. I can see it with my own eyes.
Good enough for me.
Have you tried it with a 3,000 kilometer spirit level? That may give you a different.
You gotta duct tape a lot of them together, and then.
That is, do not let the scientific process get in the way of reality. All right.
But that question is actually, literally hits what we were talking about. This idea that flat Earth is an intuitive truth. It's like our local experiences of flat Earth, and Fenton being in the building trade is like, you don't build the foundation at a slight curve. You build it flat because that's what works locally, and looking locally, and our experiences. Maybe this whole thing is quite evolutionary in the sense that we've evolved to be quite good at surviving in our local environment, not in an environment where, as Fenton and I were having a chat this morning about, we were trying to figure out time zones, and time zones are like one of the simplest parts of a global Earth, and yet I don't think I've ever quite got my head around them exactly right. They're always like, I have to look it up. I have to like subtract. Is it a day forward? Is it a day? Like even that tiniest bit of a global Earth is not intuitive.
What time zone are you in?
Australian Western Standard Time, GMT plus 8.
I am also in UTC plus 8.
Yeah.
However, I am at a much further south location than you. So even though we're in the same time zone, it actually gets darker here earlier than what it does for you.
Yeah, that's very true.
Clear proof, flat Earth.
Yeah, what's on your clock, of course, is irrelevant to what's actually happening in your environment. There's the proof of that right there. I mean, they're made for convenience, aren't they? They're not an accurate time zone per se.
Yeah,
does that mean we should also have vertical time zones?
Yeah.
Sorry. What was that?
So we've got these vertical time zones. Does that mean we should also have horizontal time zones?
Well,
And why do we have time zones at all? I reckon Swatch had the right idea back in the 80s, where they came up with Swatch time, internet time, a single number that represents all of us, absolute time around the world. No more confusion.
If you want an explanation on the whole time thing, listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson's description and understanding about how time works and what all the clocks and everything are set up for, and it just fries your brain. It really it breaks it down to some of the most simplest things, which is not a conspiracy. The reason why there's 365 days in a year. I asked all my kids this last night, and they went, "Huh?" They're not kids. They're 30, 29, 28, whatever. I said, "Why is there 365 days in the year?" And they went, "I don't know." I said, "How long does it take for the Earth to rotate around the?" Why there's 7 days in a week? I don't know. Well, because back in the day, before they had decent telescopes, we could only see 7 planets. So they came up with 7 days of the week. And then the names of the days of the week are from moon is Monday, the sun is Sunday, and et cetera, et cetera. And even, well, it's not a planet, but Thor was Thursday, obviously. And all of these things were just set up for the convenience of what we now have in our lives. None of it's
my takeaway
real.
from all of that is that we need to go back to having Thor's Day.
Indeed.
I'm
not wearing that uniform he wears for anything. I don't want to embarrass him. That's all.
I'm calling it Thor's Day from now on. That is it.
Thor's Day. So it's all very interesting. But yeah, time is
it's relative.
Time is on the essence, as it says. Yeah, well, yeah. But one of the other things I wanted to ask Fenton, who seems to have disappeared into the boot of his car.
It's dark over there. It's late.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning and he's freezing. Fenton, how many people do you know within your group that are knowledgeable about flat earthers or are a part of actively being involved, and does that cause any friction between you and your friends?
It's it's weird because I think in the past like year or so, it's ramped up a lot in the conservative like groups, at least in California, especially, but in America, because one of the most famous podcasters is Candace Owens
Yeah.
amongst Americans, and she's just now really entertaining these things. I mean, the way she talks about it is like a 10-year-old, but she's entertaining it, and millions watch her podcast. My sister watches her podcast, and it's her favorite podcast. And it's like, the weird thing is that, like, say when I talk to my sister, I don't know yet. She might be hiding, like, I agree with everything Candace said, but I'm not going to tell my brother right now. I'm just going to keep it here, for a while. And that's what's, once, say for the example of my sister, if she meets some like church person that she respects and he says he believes it, that's, adds a whole lot of momentum towards that, belief. And then if the entire conservative party starts, disbelieving, who knows how big it can get, and that's, you saw in America, a lot of conspiracies really ramp up very quickly right now.
It seems to be whatever direction people in America head to. It's always a form of extremism. We don't have the Christian right so much as it were in Australia. Not so much. Yeah, one person does not make it. But anyway, it's very different. America, religion is just almost a way of life for everyone that we kind of see as outsiders. It's not like that in Australia. And because of that, something like the flat earthers is huge in America. I think it's around about 7%. I think between 4 and 7% of the population are flat earthers. Now that's a phenomenal amount of people in a country with 380 million people. That's scary.
I always literally thought that they were taking the piss. Like, I thought they were just having a lend of us, and this was just an ongoing gag. But it seems there's some truth to it. There are genuinely people who believe the earth is flat.
Yeah, what? It really pushes Poe's law.
Whose law? Sorry?
Poe's law, where it's like certain like crazy beliefs can be so unique and bizarre that you cannot tell if the person's joking or being serious. And it's just on that level where you're watching it. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Jesse Lee Peterson, but he's just this bizarre guy where he's racist, but he's black and he hates himself, and it's just this weird thing where it's like he never ever breaks character, and he'll debate people, and it's like, I really don't know what this is, and that's the, for skeptics, the cognitive dissonance we have is like, what is this thing? Like, I like to be consistent, but this person seems like I can't understand what they're doing,
Maybe they started out as a joke and it caught on. Literally as someone taking the piss, and then suddenly everyone's going, is it possible? What do you mean? Well,
and some of the ringleaders may not actually believe. I kind of figured that some church leaders are a bit like that as well. Don't actually believe. It's such a convenient business model that they'll stick to it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're done then.
Well, one thing that I think Roy is hitting to, and it's kind of what I see a lot of flat Earth experiences, is it's these kind of repeated interactions with people. And so one of the repeated interactions is, I think they're lying, and then I find something, they say a fallacy or something, and now they're labeled a liar. All right, I got a liar. You're a liar. I can't listen to you anymore. And another one of them is, I guess I'll use the example of like say I'm talking to you and I'm a flurfer, and I explain Operation Paperclip to you, and I tell you, look, these ex-Nazis were hired by the U.S. government to as scientists to work for us, and just that statement sounds like, whoa, that's weird, man. If you've never heard of that, I don't like that at all, you know. And when a flat earther tells you that, I want to see on your face the freak out that I had, because when I heard that, I freaked out. And when you're not freaking out, I don't get what's going on, and I need to like figure out what this is. And a lot of it ends up being like a victim thing where, you know, I'm a victim. I'm just trying to be sincere and care about the world. There's this conspiracy going on and you don't even care. You're telling me to shut up and I care about you, you know. And it's that experience that kind of makes it genuine for them. And it really, when you watch them interact,
anti-science, anti-establishment, anti the state, anti-authority. They're basically saying, I'm wise to you guys, and this is one more thing that I know about, and it tells me that everything else you say is a lie.
Makes them feel smart.
Well, and it also follows like a biblical narrative of, you know, if the Old Testament is it's this group of people just trying to do the right thing, and there's just all this opposing force against them, and they want to be with God and do the right path, you know, and it's all these other things around them. So when they read the Bible, they go, that's us too. You know, we're on this spiritual path or whatever, you know.
Let's drill down on that statement alone and ask what is the hope. Everyone who has a group who believes that they're a part of a control, they have a hope of something to achieve at the end. Do they actually talk about an end game? Like, what is the result that they're trying to achieve? Is it achievable, or do they just get off on the battle alone?
Yeah, I don't think they have like a pre-planned end to what they're doing. I think they're in a battle that they'll do forever, just like with the religious people, where we're just continuously fighting for the common good of God's will, you know, in this direction. But I don't know, what's really weird is that it's basically the same thing that all humans do. It's just a social group in a lot of ways with a lot of toxicity, but it's tribalism, and tribalism will never end. It'll just continue to cycle through that group in different ways. And like you see with this recent experiment, you know, one major guy leaves, but not only one major guy leaving, another guy did this little mysterious thing while they were filming it. So now he's kind of outside of the flippers because they think he's into something too, because he did this. He was trying to fake this, like the, you know, you can't see it now, but he was trying to fake showing it was cold. But what he actually did was hit a vape. And so he caused this major division of, what are you doing with that? You know, and it's, so the phenomena, it's like they're LARPing together perpetually.
Is it that like he was dishonest about that vaping, and it just goes, well, if you're dishonest about that, the whole thing's done. So they're always looking for that little, as you said, the lie seems to be the big deal in this thing. And if you find one little lie, they can wipe everything else about it because obviously there's something going on there. That actually explains a lot about the dynamic that I've seen. That's fascinating, man.
Just before you make a comment, Fenton, I just wanted to just draw attention to our viewers and listeners around the world who we have no comments from. See what happens when you find yourself in a car talking to three blokes from Australia. The comments stop because it's so fascinating. If you are listening or watching right now on YouTube Live, anywhere in the world, we would love to hear what you think about. Are you a flat earther? Do you know people who are? Is there something you can chuck in that is a variable about what it is that we're actually saying? Jump on now and put your comment in. We'd love to have you a part of what we're doing here. It is an atheist, a believer, and a pastor walk into a bar. We do this show every Wednesday night, and we talk about belief. One of the beliefs is that the Earth is flat. So I don't know whether you wanted to comment on what Rich just had to say, Fenton. I'll give the floor to you.
Well, I mean, what he was saying is kind of how just my interaction, like when I interact with flat earthers or, believers, anything like that, I like to use like a, a Socratic method, and I just continue to ask questions and go, okay, we're getting closer to what your real issue is here. And, you just
Mm,
keep going down that path with them. And just what I've noticed, when I do this is they have these repeated interactions, these same little mini conversations just with different subject matter, and it just repeats over and over, and it's exactly the way our brain functions. We get used to a pattern, it gets a reward response, and we continue that, and it becomes established as, part of our personality or whatever. And that's where it becomes really hard because it's similar to an addiction. They
mm,
like they're gonna go get a drink, they log into a flat earth thing, and you know they're getting super hot. Like if you listen to the conversations, there's endorphins and adrenaline
mm.
going on in those conversations. They're getting real high, and they're
Is it an
having,
everyday part of life for the average people? Because it's not in Australia. I would hazard a guess to say if you mentioned this to say 80% of Australian average Joes, I reckon nearly all of them would just laugh and say, "What the hell are you even talking about?" It's actually quite a newish thing, as it were, in Australia. Certainly not from what it's like in America. Is it just like a normal everyday thing to most people? Because here it's not.
well, I don't know. I have no concept of how influential people like Joe Rogan are in your country or other countries, but here he's enormous. Not even
Yeah,
just the podcast listeners, but his influence is really obvious, especially in like younger men.
yeah.
And, you know, oh, I mean, I've seen Christian pastors just going, we don't really know how they built the pyramids. Therefore, I don't know
God,
what's going on with a lot of things. And they just like, it's like I was saying earlier, it's like you don't know how many people are in this group because they're going to hide it, from most of the people they know. But I mean, I'm in California, and like Trump conspiracies, like all these conspiracies are, you would think they're only in the Midwest in that way that you see on, those clips, of those guys freaking out, um, but it's actually pretty prevalent. A lot of people are
Mm,
really like, because the internet is so confusing, I think, for a lot of older people, and it's also so like unchained and crazy for young people, that it's causing a lot of anxiety. And it's just like people are searching for something to latch onto
mm,
that's a little deeper than reality somehow. And that's where, you don't know how many people are into it, and you don't know how many are going to jump into it if Joe Rogan says he's game with, with something.
I mean, the reward must be purely tribal at this stage. Of if you believe in God, you expect to get something back. But the only thing you're getting back from believing in something as a minority is the feeling of tribalism and being a part of a group. Surely,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a big part of that. Like, when you discover conspiracy, the QAnon people, all that stuff is like, one, it's really interesting to, think you're doing some kind of investigation and going really deep into this and, watching footage and stuff. But also, the I think I'm saving the world thing, and the I'm a victim because like a big factor is the Illuminati belief, like some overbearing power. And sorry, this is so important, I'm going to interrupt myself on it, but like a major factor also with this, because I just remembered a note I made. A major factor also, and it's very analogous to Christian apologetics, or not Christian, but like theistic apologetics, really, is if they can define the entity that's controlling what's going on with their belief system as powerful enough to do anything, then they can justify any belief
Mm.
about that entity. And that's where, like, if they believe in the Illuminati, they have all the money and power in the world. Or if they believe in reptilians, well, reptilians, they have something we don't, they're, you can imagine a reptilian can shapeshift. I can imagine Trump could be a reptilian if they're real, like anything could be real if reptilians are real. And it's the same if God is triomni. All these possibilities now
Mm.
become, totally believable for within that system.
Yeah, no, that is fascinating. The unfalsifiability of it. There's nothing that then once you have those pieces in place, there's nothing you can bring to the story that can change it, because there's enough resources to oh yeah, you just keep pulling something out your bag. There's nothing that you can bring to falsify it. That's fascinating, and yeah, obviously not from the flat earther or conspiracy theories, more from the sort of religious belief side of things. I've seen that dynamic at play where there is nothing that you can bring to some of the people that you talk to, some good friends, because they've got the catch-all. Well, God can do it, or of course, he made it that way, or you thought that way, or he put the fossils in the ground to look like the millions of years old. It's just like there's no amount of evidence that can falsify it. Therefore, it's as scientists speak, that's the death knell to any sort of rational thinking. As soon as it's not falsifiable, it's not a rational thought. It's just a well, I don't know what the term is when it's just a posited belief. It's a force of will, so to speak. Yeah, brilliant.
Do you
No, that's
reckon
a
that,
brilliant insight.
are these beliefs mainly in the kind of right wing community? And do you think more and more American men, young men, are heading right? Because I'm hearing stories that we're seeing a greater chasm between young women who are more progressive and leaning left and young men who tend to be more conservative and they're leaning right. And all of this stuff with Trump and Nick Fuentes and, this whole thing around, your body, my choice, that kind of thing. Is this a trend in the US?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think the culture for women is really weird right now, because I think they just feel like they established themselves, and then they feel like, I think we're about to take a big step back. Wait a minute, and I
Absolutely.
think for,
Yeah.
American women, it's a really confusing time, because they're like,
Mm.
we almost just had a female president, and now it's like I feel like I might be like subservient legally to my husband in a couple years. Like, I don't know what's going on, so, and for male culture it's similar, where it's like I may have to subject my wife, and be in that role, and there's the alpha
But that has a
male
basis in
influencers
religion
are
as well,
so
doesn't it?
huge. Huh?
Oh, absolutely it does. And that's the Bible has a lot to answer for when it comes to male domination and how it impacts the world in 2025. It's completely, the old scriptures in particular, there's not one single word written in the Bible, New Testament or Old Testament, that a woman has contributed to it. So women are cut out. They're not allowed to be educated. And what we're seeing now with a Neanderthal like Trump is it seems like he's somehow almost recreating the male dominance, men driving around in big utes saying, your body, I forgot the last bit of my body, your body, my something I say, or
Wait,
something in it.
Choice.
Choice. Yeah, my choice. I mean, that is a sickening a statement for a woman as you can possibly get. And these men are loving it. They're lapping it up. They're the people who have voted for Trump. There's not too many liberal-minded, smart people in this world who would want Donald Trump to be the president. But this is how it's going. And I feel so sorry for anyone in America trying to make a go at their lives to better themselves when it comes to health, when it comes to money, when it comes to work opportunities. It's just the women are copping it. And as you said, Fenton, they were just getting somewhere. They went so close. They almost had a female president. They've gone from the extreme backwards to wow. It's crazy. It really is insane.
And what about the breakdown of like women versus men in terms of these conspiracy theories? Do you see as many female flirts as male flirts?
Oh, not at all. No. Usually, every flat Earth female I've seen, and it's funny because the opposite happens in Christianity a lot. Is she was brought in by the guy, and in a lot of Christianity, the guy's brought in by the wife. Like, I'm going to the church because she's in the church, and I want, you know. So a lot of times it's that demographic. It's, I think, 99% dudes. Even a lot of the conspiracy stuff, because it is a very masculine thing to see. I'm seeing the problem, we're going to talk about it and solve it, you know, whereas for women, it's such an emotional thing to digest, all these conspiracies, all these lies, like, I think they don't latch onto it that same way where they want to attack it. They want to empathize, I think, more and understand. And it's not attractive if you just want to empathize, because it's too much chaos, you know.
I really worry for the interaction between the genders going forward over the next few years, with, you know, women wanting to maintain their rights and can continue to progress, and so many acolytes of Andrew Tate and people like that who are preaching this patriarchal dominance. How is this? How do we bring these people back together?
Well, I think what's funny is also, like, what I think is causing a lot of the issue is the more soft representatives, not the Nick Fuentes, but actually the Jordan Petersons, who are just beneath that level, saying the same thing, but in a different way. And then when he says it and Nick Fuentes cites Jordan Peterson, he connects himself to it. And it's those more like lower level, softer image people who, you know, I think have more influence, but also when they fall apart, that reference that Nick Fuentes is using and all these people is going to fall out from under them as well. And that's why I'm so into, like, science and pushing that outward and confronting people and trying to talk to them on their level and go, look, dude, I was there. I believed in weird stuff, but look at all the cool stuff we can dig into, and you can get excited about this now, you know. And
Yeah.
But I can see it from their perspective, Fenton. Faith is never wrong. Science is wrong all the time.
Yeah, there's that fundamental understanding that a lot of people have with how science functions as an entity over time, where it's like it has to revise itself. And the flurfers go, you lied. And it's like, no, it's a revision, you know, like if you're repairing your car, it's not because your car lied, you're just repairing it, you know.
Yeah.
Do flat earthers believe that the world will be a better place if the so-called authorities that are conspiring turn around and say, you know what, we're done, you're right, you're correct, the earth is actually flat, we've been bullshitting to you all this time, now what do we do? Do they actually seriously think that being a flat earth acknowledgement will make the place better, or is that even not on their radar? My guess is the latter is probably true. They probably don't have the intelligence to actually work through that.
Yeah, they don't have like a, you know, like with a lot of political theories or whatever, they extrapolate from their theory to a future, you know, utopian type of thing. With them, it's more just this experience, this reciprocal thing. I just lost train of thought.
But if you acknowledge it's a flat earth, aren't you acknowledging that there's a firmament, and therefore you're acknowledging that there's a heaven and that religion is true, that it's all Like it all stacks on top of each other.
Well, that's what's weird is it's not a hierarchy of beliefs or like a flow chart like that's organized. It's just scattered things, that you
Chaos.
point at different times. You go that thing, that thing, that thing, this thing, like a non sequitur, just craziness. And that's what's so like a big part of what makes the flat earthers different from Christians or like other groups, that have a belief and they group together, and some people may not agree with them, is that like Christians, Muslims, whatever, they have some type of authority structure that governs what they believe, and they move towards that person or that the Ten Commandments or something. They latch on to something. But with flat earthers, all it is the paranoia. So it's really, they don't have even authority figures. Some of them are popular and they donate to that guy and they want to see whoever it is keep making videos, but they're ready to drop them at any moment. Like you've seen with this Jeranism guy, they loved him. He was making money. He was doing experiments for them. Everybody in that community was like, this guy's an OG. And then he admits on camera, hey, man, I saw the 24-hour sun. I mean, I don't know what to do.
You've been bought out, man.
Honest. Yep.
Well, for those people who are watching tonight who may not understand a lot about the flat earth community and what they're doing, and we're trying to throw some light on that. But what's happened of late, for those people who don't know part of what the flat earthers believe in, apart from the fact that we're all living in a dome and various other bizarre things, they also believe that there's a wall of ice, and no one, no matter what side of history that you're on, has managed to go beyond the wall of ice. Is that correct? And now they've discovered that that's not actually, it doesn't exist, because they actually got off their asses and went there and had a look.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a couple things proven by the 24-hour sun being observed in Antarctica, but the ice wall is an obvious one where they just went to Antarctica and the guys just were proven instantly that this is just not that wall. But it is bizarre where it's like you see, a circle and you walk around the circle could be identical to you're inside the circle and walking inside it, because all you see is just that edge. So they, intuitionally, you could, grasp any images of Antarctica and stuff like that. It's so vast, you don't see the whole thing in one picture. So it could be an endless wall somewhere. And,
My big fear out of all of this, guys, is not so much even this thought about being a flat earth. It's the understanding or the realization that if they can believe that, and they can believe other weird stuff, that they have the same voting capacity that thinking people, rational people, science people have. So they can influence, as they have just done in the US, the future not only of government, but of policy. And that is just mind-blowing, because we're seeing it affect women already. What is it going to affect longer term? It's affecting immigrants now as well. Where are we heading? Is this going to increase conflict around the world? Is it going to increase suffering around the world? The US used to be one of the leaders of providing support around the world. They were called the Earth's cop, because they promoted democracy and doing the right thing. That's going, if it's not gone already. I mean, Trump's already made it very clear he doesn't want to do anything external to the US.
The overall picture of the United States of America, and remembering that I'm considerably older than you, you're young, but thanks for happy birthday messages, guys. I turned 68 yesterday, so thanks for
yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thanks, man.
You don't look a day
Shakespeare once wrote in one of his plays, when the age is in, the wit is out.
Oh.
Shakespeare. Who the hell knows who he is?
I'll do one as well for you. Pete, this is for you. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
Continue on. Come on, do the rest of it.
No, that's the bit I wanted for you.
What I was okay. What I was going to say was that I'm old enough to remember JFK, and you go through from, let's start as a starting point of fantastic presidents, and go all the way through. And there's a few duds along the way, but Jimmy Carter and all of the great presidents. Compare any president the United States has ever put forward to the clown and the lunatic that is controlling them now. It is like there's no comparison. He has zero empathy for the people of America, and the people of America have been so conned by so many people over such a long period of time that he, just with his television and his cleverness and his lies and his manipulation and his bullshit, has managed to get enough people to believe that he actually gives a flying you know what about them.
For the second time.
Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough. He didn't have enough time the first time round to completely destroy the country, so he's going to give you another go at it. Wow, I'm staggered.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm really fascinated by in history is that, like, we have this like idealized movie version of how people acted in history, and then we have the reality. Like, when we think of, I don't know, any time in history, we think of like everybody's kind of acting like a behaving NPC in a video game, and we don't think about all the griminess that really occurred there. And that's where, like, when you learn about past American presidents, oh boy, there was some weird stuff they did, some bizarre things that happened, and back then, this was eras of the political guys are over here and a snake oil salesman's over there, and it's just nobody knows what's real or whatever. And it's similar now, with the internet, conspiracy culture. But I think like what Trump is really tapped into is accepting that griminess and like being it. We're gonna make America great again, and I say offensive things, and this is just a part of, like, the culture moving forward. We're edgier, we're alphas, we say what's on our mind, and unfortunately, like that, the humility that deletes is what you need for science and for like reasonable thought. And like like Roy was kind of hinting to is or I think it was, I forget who it was, but the American education system is in a really weird place, because like a lot of parents didn't go to college in America. They're really just grinding, and they're going to school board meetings, and they're deciding on what these teachers are going to be able to establish as curriculum, and they are nudging up against flat earth stuff and nudging up against all these other conspiracies. They may think that everything's a satanic thing, conspiracy, and that's where our education system in America is getting really weird, because we're actually entertaining these conspiracies and this bad reasoning. And
we've talked a lot about that on the podcast. I just want to double check. It's very unusual. Excuse me. I've got this 100-day cough after COVID recently, and it's driving me crazy, but I can't stop. If there's anyone listening, and we know there are people out there, of course, watching us live on YouTube at the moment, just jump in and just put any kind of comment on, so we can actually establish whether or not this is working. Because it's very unusual to have no response from anyone. The last time we did this little test, we found out that for some reason we actually weren't going to air after about an hour and a half, which was kind of embarrassing. So if you are listening, and we know there are plenty out there, please just jump in a comment, just say, yes, we are here, because otherwise there's just four guys just talking rubbish for an hour and a half or whatever. So, and I think your point, Fenton, is great. And my talking about the past presidents was purely in perspective of the comparison to what we have now. I understand there were plenty of duds along the way, and there was lots of strange stuff. You got to look at George Bush Jr. I mean, my God. But they seemed bad then, but when you compare them to Trump, they just suddenly seem so much less of a train wreck than what Trump is doing. And I just don't think the world is ready to understand exactly what it is that he's going to do. And it could very well be the end of the next giant power. Could be well and truly America going under, and like so many great nations have before. I don't see how it can stop. I really don't. It's crazy. Very, very scary stuff.
Yeah. I think part of what I see is, remembering back to when America did invade for, looking for weapons of mass destruction, things like that, a real dud move, a lot of I remember watching some of the way he spoke was so inarticulate and illogical at times. Echoes the same thing, but there wasn't this mass movement of people adopting like this weapons of mass destruction hysteria. It seems like Trump embodies a movement rather than just being a president that's a bit out there, or a bit fringe, or a bit further to the right than he's almost a catalyst for quite a grassroots movement, which I think it's always been in the culture in America, but not to this extent. I wonder if that's a bit more of especially us, us three blokes looking from literally the other end of the world. We look at that, and that's quite a bizarre thing to us, because we don't have that dynamic in our politics. Like, even the prime minister that we absolutely love does not start a movement. You just better not get too big for his head. That's
it's the one thing we've managed to maintain and not being swept away by America. And America has been our number one guardian and our go-to. And the thought of not having America there to help protect us, it's definitely a big brother concept. We've had that since I was a little boy, and it's been very comforting.
And virtually all of our television and movies and music are all American as well. I mean, we have our own.
But we grew up on The Simpsons, didn't we?
That's right. But in spite of that, we have still managed, probably because of the geographical location, maybe somehow that's impacted, that we have still managed to maintain our sense of individuality and not be swept away by America's dominance. Quite the opposite. In fact, most people I know look at America as a bit of a joke, because we're bombarded with TikTok videos of asking teenagers 10 questions and none of them knowing the answer to any of them. And I don't know whether that paints an accurate picture of the education system in the States, but what it does is it and of course we see Trump firsthand. We see, to me, talking to someone like you, Fenton, is actually really refreshing, because it puts a reality and a human face on what is a country that is almost laughable at the moment with what they have done. Not the good people, but the haters, the people that see Trump as some sort of a hero, some sort of a god. People have prayed and saying Jesus brought him here. I mean, for freak's sake, seriously.
It's almost like there's a willful ignorance, isn't there? Almost like a lack of education, a lack of science is almost a virtue.
Yes.
Yeah, the MAGA group and the Flat Earth group, they overlap a lot, but also the way that group operates and kind of evolves is almost exactly the same, where it's a lot of like victimhood, a lot of virtue signaling, where it's like, I'm working against the Illuminati, whereas the MAGAs are working against the libs that are trying to take everything from you, take your guns or whatever it is. And it's like, a big one right there is, the taking the guns. Like, I need to defend myself. This is a foundational thing. And it's the same, like where like the military's lying to us, or NASA's lying to us to a flat earther. It's so, it's really a big deal, to this ideology. But one thing, like I like to try to look at things like from a stance independent kind of perspective, and kind of look at populations as like a soup that something gets added to, and it just, things are interacting now, and it's not like intentional from the inside, something developed in the soup. And I think the internet and the COVID, just the path that America went through during COVID, like all the drama, all of the, questioning things and all the impacts of it, it's gotten us to a place we wouldn't have gotten ourselves. And I think, the influence of stuff like the internet, and how, like you're saying, like the previous presidents didn't have a lot of quick power. I mean, they did, because they could call a guy and nobody else could get in between them, but they couldn't build a grassroots movement. They'd have to get on TV. They'd have to make sure people see it, and now, like we saw with like January 6th and that little era, is the internet can spread so much so fast to so many people. And if the right people know how to frame it, it can spread like, a virus or something like that. And it's just, that's
You're
where like,
100%, you're 100% correct, Fenton, because if Donald Trump had been put forward as a president, say going back 5 years, back to the beginning of the very first president, he would have zero chance, because back then it was all about the character, and it was all about the grassroots stuff. It wasn't, you could embellish it, sure, you could have some propaganda, but today and nowadays it's set up perfectly for someone like Trump to totally manipulate anyone and everyone. I know intelligent, very intelligent, smart people who love him. For some reason, they've been blinders put on their eyes, which disables them from seeing who he really is.
Rapist
From
doesn't
day
matter.
one.
Felon doesn't matter.
Hey? No, but look, be a dick, but be a great president for the country, yes. But he is neither a great president, but he is a dick. So he offers nothing whatsoever. He has no redeeming features. He is not for people. It's only about him. He can do nothing but destroy anything good that comes near him.
Yeah, but he's fucking over the libs.
Yeah.
Well, one commonality that I definitely see with like the flat earthers and the MAGAs as well is what I call movie logic, where they frame situations in their brain like movies they've seen. There's antagonist, there's protagonist, there's this type of hero, there's this type of, like women, she's, a trophy wife, she's a this or that, like they categorize things in that. And that's where, like, if they can jump into a movie, if I can be, Thor Ragnarok, whatever, type of awesome experience, I can enhance my life. And what Trump kind of is doing, and Flurf too, is like the imagination's wide open with that group. There's no like, you don't believe this if you're a part of this group. You don't do that if you're a part of this. This is a limit. You don't say the C word, in MAGA or whatever. It's really wide open, and it's, it's like this moving blob, and that's sort of, it's like for in one part, it's definitely like strong, that because it can mold in so many ways, but also like you're seeing with this recent flat earth experiment in Antarctica with the 24-hour sun, is that the flat earth community is imploding right now. You can watch it on every single place. They're talking about basically how we're falling apart. is the conversation they're having
Wow.
now. And I'm hoping at one point, like I see a similar phenomenon about to happen with all of Trump's cabinet choices, is he's choosing
Yeah.
these guys who he goes, they're alpha males, they're entrepreneurs, but also they're
Alcoholic.
about them. They're about their life. They want to go do their thing in whatever cabinet, and then they want to go to Atlantic City and do their naughty stuff and not get caught. And the problem is when all these guys get, you know, a bunch of power from Trump, they're going to start screwing up so bad. And it's going to be funny on one hand, but it's also going to completely deteriorate the structure of our government.
Yeah.
And that's what's really scaring me more than anything, is that these guys are going to get really deep and really a lot of power over how different aspects of the government work. And they're just going to destroy it from the inside.
All
And it
those
will
career
destroy
bureaucrats.
MAGA, but well, that
all those public service people who have been there forever, that hold that institutional knowledge that isn't even necessarily documented, the relationships between different departments and the people that actually service those departments, all of those relationships, even internationally from a diplomatic point of view, all of that gone within the first 6 months of the administration coming in. That's terrifying.
yeah, that's to me the biggest, like, it's not talked about as much, but that's the thing I see in the future that's just going to be, oh my God. Like you see it with businesses. Like we've probably all worked somewhere where a new manager shows up and people go away and you go like, dude, it fell apart when this dude showed up. You know, he seemed like he put a bunch of money in, he bought a new this, he bought a new that, he put this rack up for this thing. And then it's just like, but then after that, all his managers just took their bonuses and never showed up. And, you know,
Yes, I can see that. I wonder because, as you can tell, all of us are on various shades of the left to far left of politics, probably for very good reasons. But you know, when I look at the dynamic, I can see that, you know, it's the extremism. It's not like the right is all bad and the left is all good. I've seen a lot of watched a lot of the leaders in the left have no idea about the average American, just no idea. And so where are you going to turn? To the person who looks at you for contempt, or somebody that you hope? And I can see that dynamic. But I wonder if what you're saying is America, you know, if America is addicted to partisan politics at the moment, I wonder if this administration is them hitting rock bottom so that they can finally give up their addiction. I hope they don't have to go too far, but let's hope this is rock bottom for you guys, and you can get over some of that real tribalistic, you know, fighting. And yeah, I don't know. I hope it doesn't get so bad that you can't recover. That's
Well, it's incredible, isn't it, that the person who stood for all of the things you're talking about, Rich, was Kamala Harris. I mean, she was your classic conservative American potential president. No bad baggage, didn't do anything close to the disgusting comments and things that Trump has done. She was it. She seemed to be, but people have had enough of that stereotypical type of president. They thought by putting in someone completely different is the right move. And
well,
time will tell, but I don't think any of us are going to be surprised. Just quickly before, I did go and just check. That's why I was out. I was checking to see whether we are actually going to air, and we aren't. I mean, I'm joking. We are going to air. And it's just quite bizarre. I don't know. Anyway, that's, and I just wanted to quickly add in. I don't know whether you guys have seen. If anyone wants a beautiful parody of Trump's behavior, have you seen the film Don't Look Up? Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep. You haven't seen it, Rich?
No, I haven't.
Watch it. Right? Meryl Streep as the president of the United States. It's such a piss take, but it is brilliantly done. Leonardo DiCaprio Meryl Streep, Don't Look Up. You can't help but looking at it going, they're just
Do yourself a
taking the piss
favour.
out of it. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. You familiar with it, Fenton?
I haven't seen it for a really long time. I don't.
Yeah. No, I love
familiar,
it.
but I don't really watch a lot of movies. But
No.
I had connected to this idea that you're saying, like what we see with like people like Trump is that like these extremist statements, and you're saying like Kamala was like, ideal, where like I've been, I guess, on the lefty sphere. The character I use on YouTube is actually Sam Cedar's comic. He voices that character. Sam Cedar's Majority Report is like an old school Air America leftist.
Sam Cedar.
And so from my perspective, is that level like bordering on Marxist, communist? Like we push the leftist to where we see where it has to go to really be effective. And like one thing that like you would want to say that like Kamala represents things, but and this actually is analogous to pseudoscience and stuff like that too. Like Trump recently just said that, if the hostages in Gaza are not released, all hell, some type of statement that's close to all hell is going to break loose in the Middle East within about a week from now or something like that. We don't see somebody like Kamala saying, if this Gaza war doesn't end in the next week, all hell's breaking loose in the Middle East. It's just not represented on that.
Isn't that what you would prefer? I mean, who wants a president saying that? I mean, America is obsessed about being involved in everyone else's, history. You got to go back. I think if Kamala, and don't get me wrong, I don't think she was ideal for the role of president, but she's sure as hell a hell of a lot better from someone as unhinged and dangerous as Trump. I don't think she could do the damage that Trump has done. For him to say that, it's a typical male. I'm a rich, powerful white man. I can make threats to any country in the world because I'm the president of the United States. Is it the best thing to do? No. Kamala certainly wouldn't have done it because she would have been at least more diplomatic in doing it. Would she have had results? I don't know. Is Trump going to get results? I don't know that either.
Yeah, and I like when I say that, I don't literally mean that I would want Kamala or anybody to actually say that about that particular issue, but I'm saying like a more like abrasive representative of this position, whereas people like Kamala or the Democratic Party for a really long time has tried to sell this soft image of this, we're reasonable, we're not going to these extremes, we're the side where if you want to go home and relax, we're the people, but if you want to go out and yell, they're the people, and it's like, it's really not representing progress because it's just trying to maintain an identity that people are comfortable with rather than.
I know what you're saying. We've done the same thing in our country. Your gridiron is our Australian rules football. It's been in the country for ever and ever and ever. And the coaches of all the years gone past would be screaming at the players, screaming and abusing them and threatening them the way many coaches still do. In the last 5 years, people have understood that that's not the way you get the best out of human beings. You don't threaten them. You don't punish them. You actually teach them how to become better sports people and better at the game. And the change has been phenomenal. There's a coach on the sideline who doesn't need to say a word, and his players will give their lives for him as players. It's incredible to watch. That's the change which I think was needed. And the same kind of thing perhaps is needed, well, right across the board, because as human beings, as we develop and evolve, we understand that the way we've done things is not the best. If you look at the whole world as a whole, in the history of our human race, we haven't done a very good job. We really haven't. We've put clowns in power who have destroyed things. People like Hitler and Armin, we've got to look at the world overall. We have not done a very good job as an evolving species on a new planet, which is on borderline going to destroy itself, as if we've got to back up. This one didn't work. We tried, didn't work. Let's go to plan B. Let's go to that planet down the road there. I mean, we really have done a bad job. That's the one thing that Kamala represented to me, was someone who was just passive and gentle with good policies. And I don't want to get into a political argument about or debate about, because that's not what this is about. But that was my thinking along those lines.
I've got this one question now that I've got an actual real live American on our podcast. I've been watching, like, who ends up in politics, like around our end of the earth in Australia. We get like lawyers going to politics. We get union organizers, teachers tend to go. But I was watching the show, and it was all about a whole bunch of people who had been actors going into politics in America. And I'm like, I couldn't think of a single actor that's got into politics here. It seems to be like everywhere you turn in America, there's an actor vying for a Senate. Is this just a handful that I saw? Is there a lot?
I don't
Arnold,
recall.
Forget about it.
I know you got Schwartzy, you got Ronald Reagan was the early one.
Ronald Reagan was the most famous actor.
A lot of what, like, basically Ronald Reagan's legacy is a movie about, that's basically like the theology of the current MAGA movement. They love that era, everything about it. Like, you don't need to see it accurately. You just need to see the beautiful, awesome things, And so it's something that, like, I think they're digesting more, where we'll take in a Jesse Ventura and, whoever into our government now. I mean, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like, that's one thing that's really weird.
I mean, in spite of that, I think he was quite good from what we saw. We can't, what's the word? Live on what you have seen of him as a real person. We only get the kind of Hollywood representation of what Arnold Schwarzenegger was, and I think he's a very intelligent, nice man. I've seen him on interviews, and he's all right, But is that representative of what he was as a political leader, as the governor of California?
I mean, California is really hard to talk about because it's its own country, basically. The economy of California is so enormous, and it's got so many diverse aspects to it. And we have things like natural disasters that change, dramatic parts of it, that it's like, it's really hard to talk about California as like some guy showed up and helped it, because there's just so many things going on, that it's almost impossible to say like Gavin Newsom's really making some effect that we're seeing, because it's like a lot of the money in California, the old money, leans conservative, but a lot of the people in California that are living there and struggling would be on the liberal side, obviously, because there's a lot of money here. I see money, I see paradise, but I'm not living well here, and that's a lot of the angst that's, kind of goes on there. And, the epically worst part of it is Hollywood was in California. So all this other influence just spits out from here to the rest of the world, and it's a lot of the actors and stuff like that. We just like, I want to apologize for it.
That has all the seeds for a revolution, doesn't it?
It really does.
Is that what Trump's trying to do, though? Create a revolution of some description?
Well, what's really cool is, or at least what gives me hope, is that in the same way that MAGA and is kind of this amorphous blob, as FLIRF is that same amorphous blob, where they refer back to the 50s, and Flirt refers back to like the Bible or some Anunnaki or whatever stuff. It's not solid, and it doesn't have a real plan. And what I see that in that is that there's a younger generation of people who have been playing strategy games their entire upbringing. They've been long-term strategy in ways that I couldn't even do as a 30-year-old, you know, like, and they're doing it at 10 years old. And what I see that's probably going to happen is we're already seeing it in the flat earth community where it's being totally dismantled. And then when those pieces are coming out, all these educated kids that like debunking stuff, and it's fun to debunk and make fools out of the flat earthers, are nipping at all those pieces that are left over. And I really think the MAGA movement's going to have a similar thing where these people will come to power, but they're so superficial that it's going to fall apart really quickly. And we're going to have a kind of wave of people going, like, debunking it all themselves. So we're going to be educating ourselves through that, you know, problem. And that's where, you know, America is an example of accelerationism right now. Like, let's see if accelerationism works, you know, and we'll see.
Accelerationism. I've actually not heard that word. Can you enlighten us a little bit? I'm not familiar with the MAGA. I don't know if my
Make America great again.
Yeah, make America great again. It's just the Trump movement, but it's just a real fast acronym, and you know, they attach a hat so they all look like each other, and they got a little symbol. Okay. They might as well put it right here.
It's actually a Buddhist group as well, which I was getting confused about the elite of MAGA Buddhism. So I was confused about what it was. Okay, so it's just make America great again. Okay, cool. Continue. As you were.
Oh yeah, I think it's actually really cool. Like, you could analogize flat Earth and stuff like that to religious groups and religious mythology, but I think it's way more similar to like a political movement. Like, it is couched in a lot of religious beliefs, but it's not. Its basis isn't something like, you know, consciousness after life, like, you know, finding objective morality, stuff like that you would get in a religion. It's more about, you know, activism and, like, you know,
for the sake of it.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like I have hope it's gonna fall apart. You know, just like the Satanic Panic fell apart. You know, what was it called? The
Reds under your beds?
No, the McCarthyism.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't think of the thing where they would impeach a bunch of actors and stuff like that because of their communist ties, you know, because they went to a party or something like that. But I think those types of movements are really scary, you know, like that's like, unfortunately, with the power America has, they can do something like, you know, invade another country with this
Greenland.
Hysteria, you know.
And
that's, you know, it's bad. But like, I think even, and this may sound controversial, I guess, but like, George Bush couched his stuff in, you know, religious backing. You know, he's doing this for God. We're a Christian nation. We're fighting these, you know, people from another religion that we don't understand. Whereas, you know, like I say, the FLRF and the MAGAs, they're really not couching it in anything other than angst. And like, it's not they can't connect. They try, and you see it, they try to connect Trump to the Bible as much as they can, so they can get it into that, you know, where you're getting morality from him and you're getting, you know, truths on that level from him. But that's where it sucks to see it now, and it's like you got to work with some guy that you don't like for a couple years, and you just hope he gets fired eventually because he sucks, you know. And I think that's where it's like it's eventually gonna, you know, move out because it's so, you know, it has no foundation to it, you know.
It's really strange, isn't it? Because Trump has never ever boasted religious connections, or he's talked a couple of times about having faith the way all Americans seem to do. But it seems to have just stuck to him in spite of his lack of promoting himself as a godly man. It's like a magnet. He's just walking down the street and everything's just being attracted to him for what he hasn't said, perhaps. It's quite bizarre. I do want to ask you one important question I've been wanting to ask you all night. Is it a prerequisite to be a believer in the earth being flat by denying, and this is probably a rhetorical question in a way, denying man landing on the moon? Can they coexist or not?
And it's insulting, I bet, to them, but they kind of need it. Is like one of the most exciting aspects to any conspiracy, and I now remember his name, is Stanley Kubrick. Being able to, that whole aspect is so exciting, and his movie was 2001 was so cool, and especially for that time. And that's one of those things where
movie. It's classic.
Incredible.
You want to hear what Candace Owens has to say about this?
Yeah. I want to check her out.
So, what Fenton was saying. Fenton, go on. No, you go on. You go on.
I was just to say, so an aspect like that to the conspiracy is so exciting that it's not even worth I'll just believe the moon landing's fake, because that's so cool to think of Stanley Kubrick and that conspiracy, and it's too complicated to do the friggin' math they were doing back then. To figure out how they went to the moon and debunk that, and to figure out the technology then compared to now, and all the, the military was 20 years ahead, so they could CGI, or, it's so involved compared to flat earth, honestly, that they just go, Stanley Kubrick filmed it, whatever, dude. That's fun,
That's good enough for me, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I must actually go back and check it out. It's been a while since I saw it's
the problem is I fall asleep in the last half hour every single time.
Well,
I have never seen the end of that movie. I've seen it once, and I've watched the movie 7 times.
It's painful from a cinematic performance because it's
I'm sorry, Rich. I'm afraid you can't
dated.
Do that.
Nice.
For someone who was around when it came out, I find it painfully dated, and I have to try and look past the cinematography aspect of it to the
and
roots
yet the
of
physics of it still stand up to this day.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, I do know. Okay, I'm committed to go and watch it again.
But yet,
I've got to quickly tell you about the Candace Owens thing. Honestly, it's a 30-second story. I've got to tell you. So Candace Owens appears on this British podcast, and she's talking about how Hasselblad produced the cameras so that they could take photos where on the moon. Now, of course, think of the technology of 1969, 70s, so on. They needed film. So these cameras had to be specially made to be able to cope with the environmental conditions of space and the moon and so on. So Candace then goes on to say, and would you believe that all of those Hasselblad cameras, NASA doesn't have them anymore. They gifted them all to Stanley Kubrick. Ooh, conspiracy theory, only to be proven just a few seconds later that that's not what's happened at all. She's just completely spreading, whether deliberately or just ignorantly, misinformation, because when you add that level of detail to a story, suddenly it's obviously true. That's what we've got to fight. For all sensible-minded people, we have to fight this disinformation and misinformation with the truth. And the problem is it's going to be a never-ending battle. Because, Fenton, even as you said, if these movements fall apart, you still have the same amount of individuals who still have these crazy thoughts. How do we deal with that? Education? I don't know.
But the ridiculous thing about it is that whether it's true or false doesn't matter because it's been said. That's all you need to do is just say it, and there will be a whole bunch of people out there. I remember back in the day, someone was writing a story about how journalists make a killer headline. and it was along the lines of this is a certainty. This will work every single time. John Howard was the prime minister of the time. They said, how do you get people to read the paper, buy the paper, make it into a huge story? And they said, John Howard refutes. I can't remember what the thing was. It doesn't matter for the age. John Howard, who was the president of Prime Minister of Australia back in
1985 through
80s.
92.
Yeah, it was very effective. He wasn't well liked, but he was a very good prime minister from statistical point of view. John Howard refutes meeting young girl. It wasn't true. They rang him up and said, John Howard, we believe that you've been meeting some young girl. And he goes, no. Headlines, John Howard refutes meeting young girl. This is complete and utter bullshit, but it made the headlines. It was dramatic. It was huge. It was intense. It disempowered him to a degree. And he did nothing. He said nothing. And they just wrote a lie and then turned it into what was a huge story.
So when did you stop beating your wife?
Yes.
And the Streisand effect kicks in if you respond to it.
Correct. You're screwed either way. There's no way out of it, because the press, the hound dogs, and all those people that want to nail will go for it and nail, because people love to get important people, throw them under the bus and embarrass them and humiliate them. You know, it's the American way. God damn it.
Well, I don't know if it's the same in America, but certainly here in Australia, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome. Is that an American thing too?
I have no idea what that is.
Well, tall poppy, if you become really good at what you do, you're a champion. But then when you get to really good, then it's time to cut you down and embarrass you.
I see, yeah.
I think it's human nature.
Kind of. I mean, I think in America, we kind of lean more towards establishing long-term people, like people to idolize for long terms. And that's, it's actually kind of connected to something that I was thinking of too, that, like a big thing that justifies a weird belief is if you get a contradictory person in that position. Like you say, I think it's J. Werner Wallace, where he's a Christian who was an atheist and was a detective, and then he convinced, he became a Christian. So this guy's previous atheist, detective, now Christian, and this is big, and when you get these contradictory, labels into that position, you validate it on a whole new level. And that's where I think Americans can get really fooled very quickly with stuff like that, and they latch on to somebody that's like this clickbait story, and that's where it's really hard to predict, where things are going with stuff like that. I mean, flat earth uses it as well. It's like, if a flat earther can get somebody who's a phlebotomist, and now they're the scientist of our community, and it's this contradictory thing. No, we have science and flat earth right here. This is a professional, and it's like, I don't know, it's such a weird ecosystem that's going on, that it's really hard to predict or even grasp what's going on, just at once, because it's just there's not homogenous kind of groups. You can't assume everybody was like they were in the 50s, you can't make those assumptions, because now everybody's on the internet showing their face, and they're not like that.
Is there a standout group of people? And it's a hard question for you to answer, I think, because you'd need to have an overview of all the people who consider themselves to be flat earthers. Is there a predominance of Christian people, a predominance of agnostics, of atheists, or other religious? Is there a standout, something that all flat earthers have in common that you've noticed?
Well, I mean, a lot of, like I said, is like a lot of the community is just this red pilling other people phenomenon. I'm talking to you and I'm telling you how it is. So people who are in those types of Christian traditions do feel comfortable with the flat earth thing, but it's so toxic that they just, and it's the same with the skeptic community, you know, where it's like the skeptics that kind of group together and do movements and are a lot more mature than just people pointing and saying, you know, religion's effing stupid, get out of here. Like they don't overlap with, you know, flat earth. And it's the same with like the mature Christian or mature whatever religious community. It just doesn't really overlap with the fourth community as like cohesively as you'd think it would, because it's so toxic that you can't have, you know, famous Christian apologists say something about flat earth, because they don't even want that community to be interacting with them, because it's just going to bring a bunch of trolls and nonsense. And but within that group, like the red pilling is a big factor, telling somebody the truth. I'm telling you right now, Jesus was actually this, and it's a symbol for that, you know, and it's, you know, like whatever part the Anunnaki or the Nephilim in the Bible were actually these aliens, it's this. So it's like, it's this weird thing where like they do accept a lot of the Bible because it's so long established and it's so culturally like impactful for such a long time that they can't deny, you know, that just it's part of the culture. And a lot of the stuff they look back into, you know, the ancient history and mythology that they get their deeper, you know, paranoias from, or their like deeper justifications for like a long-term Illuminati kind of thing. You know, it has to go into that. But I rarely see, I can't think of like a lot of them do, because they're virtue signaling and you know, they're trying to save the world by confronting a conspiracy. There is like that group that kind of LARPs as Christians, you know, and tries to like have that altruistic type of, you know, presentation. But, you know, with a lot of stuff, you know, you see even religious groups, you poke at them a little bit and they get not fun, you know, and that's where it's hard to label any of the people in the group, because they're all so idiosyncratic and like reactionary.
Interesting. A great discussion. I mean, wow. So different in America than it is to us in Australia, but we always kind of learn about the fringes, the outer experiences, you know, with friends. A lot of people, including Richard's daughter, actually lives in America. So we get feedback from, but not to the depth of what we're talking about tonight, obviously. So it's interesting. Jason did have to dash. He apologizes for that, and he said make sure to say goodbye to Fenton. So so he's headed off. Thanks, Jace, for your contributions for tonight. Rich, anything you want to say or ask about to Fenton before we wrap it up?
Well, there's one thing that
and don't rush. Feel free to talk as long as you want to. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'll be here. I'm up all
There's
night.
just one thing. Whenever I think about conspiracy theories, there's this one TED talk about this guy who did a parody movement on, I don't know if you've heard about the birds aren't real movement. So yeah, so I love that. His talk was great. He actually came from a conservative background, and he wanted to do this half art installation, half sort of place where people can examine what conspiracy theories. So he made up this conspiracy theory that birds aren't real; they're actually government drones, and you know they recharge by sitting on the power lines. Obviously, obviously,
I love it.
yeah.
That's
and
the best ever.
he would go around the country and with his birds aren't real movement, and he was a bird truther back in the day. And one of the things he said really interesting, because somebody asked him a question about, well, how do you reach people who are caught in a conspiracy? Because he spent a year doing this. And he said he had this actually weird moment where he was holding his sign and people were coming at him like, oh yeah, really attacking him. He obviously doesn't believe it, but he felt something rise up in him when he was getting attacked that said, I'm going to defend myself. And he's like, hang on, you don't actually believe this. You don't have to defend yourself. He's like, oh my goodness, the frontal attack against somebody caught in a conspiracy theory doesn't work because it actually reinforces their need to defend and be okay. And he experienced that as a man who didn't even believe it. He was doing it as an experiment and stuff. So how much more to the people caught in it? And that's why I like what Fenton was doing about the engaging people where they're at with the Socratic method. I think at a impersonal level, truth has to be confrontative out there. But as soon as people meet, I think what Fenton clearly does when he's talking to people is ask them questions, see where they're at. What's the real issue? Is it really about the flat earth, or is it about belonging? Is it about having an answer for how the world works? Because a world that you can't explain, which science, we're explaining parts of it. The premise is we don't understand it all. Flat earth says we understand everything. It's a nice closed answer here that anybody can get a hold of. And, okay, that's the issue. It's not about flat earth. It's about security. And I think that was for me, was a real highlight of hearing the way you approach that. And it's hard because sometimes, especially in the political realm, we just see so much. And we only get over where we are in Australia a real filtered view of the politics. We don't get a lot of it. And obviously, Trump's craziness and Trump's crazy followers, we get a lot of that because that makes nice, good 30-second sound bites. So obviously we get a very filtered view, but it's really hard. What do we do about it? And I don't know. I don't know if we can beat it at a systematic level, but asking questions of your friends and your family, and listening and asking and gently pushing. I don't know what the answer is, but I think impersonally we need to confront it on a personal level. There's probably something else that we can do, and I don't know. Can we bring down a crazy movement one person by one person? I don't know, but maybe we can make our little world a bit better.
That really interesting comments, Rich, because I'm just casting my mind back to my life and viewing American presidency from afar, because there was way before internet, we had no comment, we had no thought, we had no John JFK, that looks nice, he looks like a nice guy, oh fuck, he got shot, oh that's not good. That's how American politics, up until probably when it started becoming more popularized, if you like, with George W. Bush was the first, because he was
that was really good too, wasn't it? Yeah.
He was a bit of a clown, and great people impersonated him brilliantly. Caliendo did a great impersonation of JW. His father was far different, but American politics was always viewed from afar for us, as Rich was saying. It's completely different to now. I feel as an Australian that I'm actually a not a movable part, but have some issue with it. Like, I can't just go away. I don't give a shit. Trump, go away. Whatever. See you in a few years. I feel invested. I feel like it's going to impact on my life somehow negatively. And I've never in my time I actually have to check it out one day. I was born in 1957. I'd love to see how many presidents have come through America in my lifetime. Nothing has ever happened like this except Trump Part 1. So it's extraordinary time in my history to be able to go, I get the sense that what he does is really going to affect me. And Melanie, Rich, is so big on American politics. You know, is never a bigger fan of
Hillary.
Hillary Clinton than Mel, and every female politician there's ever been, including Kamala Harris. So there's a feeling in the family that it's important. You can't just go, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It does matter. What Trump does from here on in impacts us dramatically. Dramatically. We can't rely on the American army machine to be able to come and protect us in times of need. We're a huge country full of bugger all people and sitting in a place that is so scary with the China Sea and what China is doing. It's like, if we don't have America to protect us and look after us, man, we're dog food. You know, it's really, really scary. So this never happened in my history before. Even when JFK was a brilliant president, we used to sit back and look at him and go, yeah, he's the man, he's the man. We didn't know about the intricacies of, you know, we knew about Marilyn Monroe and stuff like that in his life. But, do you know, the real meaty things that were important to a country. And now everything has changed so much. We almost have to take a step back and go, hang on a minute, I need to take a breath here and just work out what the hell are we seeing? We are seeing so much. Here we are in a podcast in 2025 in my office talking to an American guy in California. How weird is that? That would never have been a dream 5 years ago, and now we're doing it. It's like it's nothing else, just a bunch of guys talking about this stuff. This is incredible. This is, so what Rich was saying is about what can we do? Is there anything we can do to somehow have an impact or steer it or whatever? Maybe people are listening. Clearly tonight they're not, but you know, let's just consider it was a dud tonight because Fenton was on. Everything else is normal. I'm joking.
Well, I think we really do, like, if we look at like backwards and try to repeat things we've tried before, we don't have a lot of options and it's really scary.
No.
But I see a lot of these younger groups and their literacy with technology. It's on a level that I can't, like, I think I was like 12 when we got AOL, and we were behind. Wow. Like, we didn't pay for, like, we were always behind on technology, you know, my family. But like, seeing the impact of that, you know, in just my lifetime, I can't like, it's too weird still. The internet is still too weird for me to feel comfortable completely with it.
Absolutely.
Whereas these young people are deep in it. They know every nook and cranny of it. And that's where I see, like, I don't know if you guys heard of the GameStop situation, but I just look that up if you haven't. But I really think that's going to be a pattern we're going to see more and more. Where,
what's it called? The GameStop.
I mean, basically, it's like the gamer community is ignored, and it's really stupid. Because there's a gamer probably right now streaming that has 100,000 people watching him right now play Minecraft or something like that.
Yeah.
There's probably 200 of them.
My son is one of them. He's a pretty much a full-time gamer who actually earns money doing it.
Yeah, and that's where, like, we can't. Basically, the message of the GameStop thing on one side is that we can't deny these younger groups and what their potential is and how skilled they are with technology, and also how comfortable they are with fast moving technology.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, we just had phones, and then we had cordless phones in the house. And then TV, like color TV was new when I was a kid, but it was basically the same my whole life. Whereas these kids have seen so many ramp ups in technology that they're comfortable with it and they're adaptable. And that's where I just see, like, it's really hard for me to see how we're going to make it out of like these different issues. But I do believe that like, the groups that are basically harnessing, being comfortable with technology, moving forward, acknowledging the reality that's around them in an accurate way, are going to win out in the long term with this now, because like before the internet communication, deception called the shots. People couldn't research anything other than the library. They go and see the like
Right.
15 volume
Yep.
encyclopedia is like all they got, and now it's just, you can't lie, because 3 minutes later somebody's already clipped it and clipped you saying 6 months ago the opposite thing, and you're
Yeah.
done, and
But
like,
go on. Sorry.
well, I was just gonna say, it's just, there's a lot of potential there. And like, as scary as something like, when you talk to MAGA people now, they go, well, that's a deep fake. That wasn't even Trump. That was AI that said that, that video you just showed me. And that's really scary, because, you can't have a conversation with somebody who's, justifying things on that level now,
Yeah.
but I really think it's not useful enough to stick around, like in an evolutionary way. That kind of doubt is just not useful enough to stick around
No.
for long.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
I agree with you about the game. The game is there's a hidden, what's the word, like a treasure trove of people who are extraordinary young people who have managed to completely manage and control technology to a degree where I've watched my son. He said, "Do you want to go?" And I go, "I don't even know what you're doing. Are you serious?" I mean, it is mental. It is unbelievable. And yes, that they could be utilized, because my son, through doing that, has become my IT guy, because he's had to learn so much about technology in order to conquer this to the point where he's making money from it. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, and I'm just stating as a matter of fact, not whether it's a preference or whatever. But the other thing that really struck me, you said a second ago, and on the second half of that conversation, is about the fear of it's actually, when you said this, it took me to another level of the fear. It's not about the fear of who's going to win an election. It's not the fear of who's in power. It's not the fear of all the other stuff we've been talking about. It's the actual fear of the greatest power in the world, which is the United States government. That's what we're talking about here. They have the power to do anything, and you have almost the largest, second largest military now, which is China. Russia, who don't seem to give a shit about anyone or anything. What Putin is just on his own. He's on that horse. He's got his shirt off. He's riding away, and he can do whatever he wants to do. And there's a psycho
bear.
in South Korea and a psycho in America. It's actually viably terrifying. It should be terrifying to everyone who's sitting back on this planet now, looking at it, going, what's the hell's a couple of flat earthers and Trump, and it'll all just go away. It won't go away. They have the potential to destroy this planet, our home. And I think we need to get really serious. And as Rich was saying, is there anything we can do? Is there something that we can do that makes a difference? I don't know if this does.
I think a similar thing or a good analogous thing is, I think, the establishment of America originally is they saw these big countries, these big movements, and these diverse groups, and we needed to establish a republic that could kind of guarantee the rights of people in a way that they couldn't be taken away by these social movements that are fleeting, and that's what's like, I think, why everybody likes America, just for that bit, is the Bill of Rights, the the way we attempt to adhere to the Constitution until he gets rid of it. But but like that type of example, I think, is what's most important, and that's what like I've been pissing off a lot of leftists. I've been pissing off a lot of leftists because what I have been saying for the past probably 2 years is Trump will win. I had been of no doubt he will win. I knew how big his following was. I knew how weak the Dem party was. He will win. We need to just know that, not say it publicly all day, but what we do need to do now that we've understood that is we need to bootstrap his administration before they get in there. We need to make sure that they cannot get rid of certain rights before they get in there. And that's what Biden tried to do in the last month or whatever. And it's like, no. We needed to be doing this. I personally would have started doing this, as early as I had that intuition, and I think that's really what's going to help us move forward is just like taking an example, the Trump administration's got the power and it's going to be crazy, and we can't plan ahead and stop things that they might do in the future as well as we could have done like 2 years ago. But I really think like stuff like that, like establishing rights, like things like that are really going to be the most impactful ways to move forward. And establishing, like, if we could have some type of part of, a government structure or whatever that establishes education in a much more comprehensive way than any before. I think a lot of like, what are they called? Like Norway, Sweden, Scandinavian countries are really pushing up against that, and really what we can do to educate people, keep them safe, progress, and that's where it's like on a like dreaming about it level, like I really see that's the direction it's going. It's the main adversary is just the phenomenon of like capitalism, but more consumerism, I think, than capitalism, because capitalism is just a tool. But the thing where like I'm sitting in my car and I want a Twinkie, I want something that's been sent from Mexico that requires twice as much effort as it should to get me bananas. I want bananas over here. I want these things when they're not fresh, and it's that type of thing that I think we need to break down, and just, we don't have to demonize an entire like market or something like that to do it.
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up, guys. What do you think, Rich?
It was a great. As I said to Fenton, we'll start with flat earthers and we'll go everywhere. I think we did. Mission accomplished.
Well, I think the joy about talking with the kind of people that we've got is that it's broad. We're not, we're not just pushing the whole Christian thing. Where the whole premise for this podcast is about belief.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. Really,
belief in flat earthers, belief in astrology, belief in lucky numbers, belief. Every aspect of human life seems to be infiltrated with beliefs about things. That is the one common thing that every single human being I've ever met, they believe in something, or even not believing in something is a belief, in the sense that, so which makes this work. It makes it so fascinating. And certainly what we talked about tonight with the flat earthers, I think it's I certainly know a lot more about what they're doing, and I've got some context, and I want to go and check out Candace Owens and see what she's on about. And I'm open. I like listening, and I like hearing people's suggestions about check this out, check that out, have a listen. I don't do enough of that, probably because my life is so busy, it's hard to find the time to do it. But those things are important. And if I want to make decisions about what I see in the world, I want to do that through education and experience, not just sitting in the background as a conspiracy theorist. I have there's probably one or two, not conspiracy theorists, questions. See, back in the day, you could question legitimately what was going on. Now, if you do that, you're labeled as a conspiracy theorist. Well, I don't believe there's a conspiracy to do many things. There are governments and organizations that do stuff blatantly. It's not a conspiracy. It's actually what you see and experience and witness. But, mate, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Brilliant.
We would love to have an
It's
open line for you in the future to be whatever we're talking about. You are broad knowledged in that sense that there are many areas that interest you through, religion and Christian groups. And it's so dramatically different from anything we experience in America, although we're aware of it through what we see. Having someone on the ground, as it were, Americans love saying, we got Bobby on the ground. He's gonna sort us out, man. He's really cool, So we got you on the ground. But if there's other stuff we talk about, are we free to be able to contact you and say, do you want to come on and have a yarn about something?
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe not 4 o'clock in the morning when it's 8 degrees below zero.
It's fine.
You're a trooper, and we really appreciate you putting in, mate. Fantastic. Cannot work out why we didn't have a lot of stuff, but that's okay, because we know people are out there that don't want to necessarily be involved. Maybe it's because they're flat earth people. We'll find them and we'll deal with them. But Fenton, thank you so much for your contribution tonight, mate. Hang around after we say goodbye, because there'll be a little snippet where we can have a yarn. Rich, thanks a lot. Thanks to Jace. New subject, a new week. Next Wednesday will be the
22nd.
Correct, 22nd. The way you add 7 to 15 blows me away, Rich. It's not something mortal people can do normally. So yeah, thanks for joining us on An Atheist, a Believer, and a Pastor Walk into a Bar. Thank you so much for your contributions. Everyone listening, love to have you on board next Wednesday. So Fenton, thanks again, mate. If not in person in the back of your car, hopefully we'll get some comments from you next week. That'll be fabulous.
Brilliant.
Good on you, mate. Take care. Catch ya.